This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV 24/7.
We're a few weeks away from the general elections, and the one question that keeps coming up every now and again in the media when politicians give big speeches is about Asians and politics. And why is it that Asian people don't get involved, or is that an old stereotype that they do get involved nowadays? Also questions about, do Asian people actually go and vote on the day of the general election? And also, do they follow political parties? What political parties they usually vote for? I want to start off by asking you, Alpesh, give me a kind of personal perspective on this. How interested do you think the Asian community is in politics in general?
I think in every single household within this country, if they're and I'll speak particularly of people of Indian origin, I think it's a political household from a very young age. I think we're very politically engaged, and it's for that reason, if you think about it, our forefathers created the largest democracy in the world. If we weren't politically minded, that wouldn't have happened. And we're increasingly seeing, as the lady to my left is, we're seeing more and more of us getting into politics, frontline politics, being representatives of the people. And I think that's in our blood. It's been in our blood through our culture, through our faith, through our social upbringing. Every part of it is that we are political animals.
Okay. Political animals is true, but we know the statistics. I mean, in terms of representation of the Asian community in Parliament, or also people going out and voting on election day. Do you agree with Alpesh? I mean, this thing that all Asian people are as engaged with the political process.
I think they are. I mean, I think it's more about us as a nation, though. I think during the election period, I think we see a lot more people more engaged in politics as a whole, with things like the leaders' debates, and last night seeing, Miliband and Cameron being interviewed by Paxman. I think that you see a lot more engagement and you get to know a lot more about politics. But I don't think I'd say that politics is out of the reach of the Asian community. I think we are very much engaged.
In 2010, out of 650 people who were elected into the House of Commons, only less than 27 actually belong to ethnic minority backgrounds. That's an abysmally low number, isn't it? And people like you want to change all of that.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, the statistics that were released this week clearly stated that there are less women, particularly from the ethnic minority, getting into politics, and these only came out a couple of days ago. The one thing that I want, and every one of my colleagues have pretty much said that although there is an interest in politics, from campaigning, from doing what I'm doing at the moment, which is literally knocking on every single door I can possibly go to, there is an interest, particularly amongst the young generation, in British politics. There's equally an interest from the elder generation, but I find that they're more inclined to vote, to be interested in Desi politics, as in what's going on back home, back in India, back in Pakistan or Bangladesh. And that's great, but they seem to have lost a bit of connection, particularly with what's going on in England.
Do you think, is that, when you talk to people, do they often talk about, what's happening back home in India or back home in Pakistan, rather than Conservative versus Labour?
Definitely. I mean, I've been to so many people's houses, and it's wonderful what leaders like Narendra Modi are doing, particularly in India, but I find that when I speak to people, that's what their focus is on. They're not focusing so much as what David Cameron's doing or Ed Miliband's doing, or as my esteemed colleague in the panel has mentioned about the leaders' debate that happened. We all took an interest in it. We all watched what was happening, and I'm sure everyone's going to watch what happens in the next few weeks in the run-up to the election. However, I would find that a lot more of the elder generation would think, well, it doesn't really bother us, it doesn't really affect us, we're more concerned with what's going on back home. Yeah. And I find that's something that needs to change.
Is that true? I mean, are the auntie Gs and uncles talking about Indian politics more than politics here?
I see the decibel levels always go higher in an Indian household when Indian politics is mentioned, but that might be for the reason that there's a lot more controversy and a lot more frustration and a lot more anger, which might not be a bad thing, actually. If people are a little bit more benign about what's happening in Britain, it probably means that we're quite happy with how politics is working in Britain. We mustn't ever get complacent, and that's why we do need to be actively involved.
Why do you think the numbers are so abysmally low, though? I mean,
Just look at, on every single metric, how well the British Indian population does, whether it's in education, whether it's in business, whether it's in academia, in everything. So we have so many options open to us.
Why politics?
Well, I'd say we have so many options open to us that politics is competing with so many other professions and so many other things we could do that we think to ourselves, not only that, but we also think, there's some very good people who are doing it so well that we don't necessarily, each and every single one of us, need to step up, but we mustn't ever get complacent, and we must push and help those who want to get ahead.
And do you think Asian parents often talk their children out of joining politics? For example, Natasha, why don't you tell me your own perspective? I mean, I know that your father is a politician, but how do family members kind of talk about this?
I'm very blessed. My grandfather was the first Asian mayor, particularly in Brent here in London. My father was in politics. My mother's been in politics. Everyone has been in politics in my family. So for me, it's nothing out of the norm. But I understand that there's a lot of frustration, particularly amongst young Asians, because they feel that it's not stable. From a parental point of view, it's not a stable job. Every 5 years you're fighting to keep your job. Some people would argue we fight every day to keep our job, but with politics it's a little longer. But then also if there's any scandals, controversies, any issues, any personal issues that may have happened to you 10 years ago.
All the pressures of being in public life, all the pressures. If you went up to your father a few years ago and said that while law is great, but I want to join politics instead, well, what would he have said?
I think he would have encouraged it.
Yeah?
I think because of the fact that my father is a retired GP, he's always given to the community. So for me, I think giving to the community as well. I think he would have been very proud of that.
But attitudes within the community, you think? I mean, the Auntie G network or, the Uncle G network, do you think they would have responded similarly, saying that, oh yeah, please go ahead, become a politician, it's fantastic?
Yeah, it's an aspiration. I think they would have seen that in a positive light, and I don't think they would have had that sentiment at all. In fact, I think now they would have encouraged it, and I think it's because of the fact that we've got, I think as Indians, let's be honest, I think we've got something to offer.
Yeah.
And it's due to our upbringing. And whatever our parents and grandparents have instilled in us, I think we realise that we obviously offer that on a professional level with regards to our careers.
Okay.
But it's about time that we also entered into politics and offered that as well.
Okay. See, Seema, do you think politics is kind of up there with doctor, engineer and politician in terms of career choices for Asian parents?
Absolutely, I think.
Do you think, is that the case?
But I think the only thing is if I think of my own parents, it's delving into the unknown. We've had doctors in the family, we've had, dentists in the family, but we've never had politicians in the family. I think whenever you go into an arena of unknown, there's always a bit of sort of worry or a bit of concern. And I think for my parents, if I said, I want to get into politics, I think they would have absolutely supported me, but I don't think they would have quite known what to expect. So I think.
Why do you think the numbers remain so low? I mean, if you do a calculation in terms of how many MPs we should actually have from BME backgrounds, there should be more than 90. But the numbers are, less than 30 in 2010. Why is that?
I think it possibly is for the reason that I said, is that we haven't sort of pushed ourselves into that arena. So maybe for the younger generation, there are no role models possibly, or a handful of great role models as we have on the panel, but not enough. So when you start seeing people delve into those industries and those sorts of careers, it sort of inspires the next generation.
One of the biggest flaws, particularly in relation to young people, not just from the BAME community, but from all communities getting involved, is, and our hand on heart, I speak on all party fronts in this, I don't think they're pushing it enough for young people to get involved. A lot of people see politics as an ivory tower. People don't know what goes on in Parliament. They don't know what goes on in local councils. They don't know what goes on in Europe. Professionally.
Is that something that you found also when you've spoken to younger people while knocking doors?
They don't know about it. They just see what happens in the news. They see that constantly, the Prime Minister or various ministers getting hounded about their personal lives, about things like expenses, what they're doing right, and more so what they're doing wrong. And they just think, why would you want to get into a job where you're constantly being attacked on a social and political level day to day? They just think to themselves, I want a simple, stress-free life. Why take all the hassle on?
As well as age, we mustn't forget, it's actually a very woman and friendly place. Not least because the numbers are already stacked up against them, so they feel a minority. But also the hours that parliamentarians keep. Yes, they work incredibly hard, but those are hours which just don't fit in. I mean, women themselves complain they do not fit in to the family life that they want to have with having a parliamentary career. So all of a sudden,
how are you planning to manage the two?
Honestly, I'm very lucky, and I've worked in politics. I've worked in the Welsh Assembly, I've worked in the House of Commons, and I've worked in the European Parliament as well. And I have to say, as much as I believe and agree with what my esteemed colleague to my right has said, they do get term time holidays. They do get, many forms of parental care for their children. So there are a lot of facilities.
Plus Asian husbands these days say that, yeah, fair enough. If you're going to be a politician, we're going to sit at home and do all the work, right?
It takes a very strong man to say that and agree to doing that, but I'm sure they're out there somewhere. When I find one, I'll let you know.
I think we've evolved. Yeah. I think we've evolved thanks to being in the British community. I think we've improved somewhat.
When I find a husband, I'll let you
know. If your wife was to say that, listen, I've just been elected, as an MP.
She's standing behind the cameras, and I told her yesterday.
Yeah.
For God's sake, stand for Parliament. And I'll tell you why. Yeah. Because when she saw the BBC documentary,
are you then okay to sit at home and do all the work?
I'll be happy to do double the work I do now. If my wife's in Parliament, I'll be the first one to push her there. I'll be the first one knocking on the door.
We need more people. We need more people.
You know one thing I learned? Yeah. Indian women are far better than Indian men at everything. That's why.
Okay, we got to get audience feedback on that, definitely, I'm sure. Tell me, sir, is that, does Alpesh have more friends within the Asian community? More husbands would say, it's fine if you have to go off and do, a parliamentary meeting at 9 p.m. We'll just take care of the kids. That's okay.
I don't. You really put me on the spot there. Yeah, I think. Yeah. Let's leave it.
That's the most shaky yes I have ever seen on this discussion. But there you go. What about you? I mean, do you think Asian husbands and Asian families in general are more supportive of women going out and joining politics?
I'd like to think they are. I know in my own experience, yes, I can certainly say my husband and my family are very supportive of my career choices as a presenter, which is completely outside of our family. No one's ever been in the media world, so I'd like to think so. I think there still needs to be a bit of change. I don't think there's full support, but again, as I said before, I don't know if it's more because of that unknown, stability, pressure, how you're going to cope with family life and work, and maybe those attitudes need to evolve a bit, but I definitely think there's been a shift.
Well, after having spoken to you, I almost feel as if you've contemplated the switch to politics yourself. Is that true?
It's funny because I think, as you mentioned earlier, with politics, my interest has grown because I work on the Right Stuff, which is very heavily political orientated, but also I studied politics with sociology at university, and that political,
So maybe after Natasha is in Parliament, next time in 2019 you can swap some notes, TV.
But babysit your kids.
We'll hold you to that. We'll hold you to that.